The salvage crew of the Prosperity's Edge had seen a lot of strange things in the Outer Rim territories, but nothing quite like the derelict station floating in the shadow of Kepler 442b's largest moon. Captain Zara Chun pressed her face against the observation deck's reinforced viewport, watching the massive structure slowly rotate against the star field. Ancient and pitted with micrometeorite impacts, it looked like it had been drifting here for centuries. Scans show no active power signatures, reported Korvek, her the Cien engineer, his 4 arms dancing across multiple control panels simultaneously. But the hull composition is unusual. It's not any alloy in our databases. Unusual how? Zara asked, though she was already mentally calculating the potential value of unknown technology. Her crew of 12 had been scraping by on minor salvage operations for months. They needed a big score, and mysterious ancient stations usually meant one of 2 things: incredible wealth or horrible death. Sometimes both. The metal appears to be a titanium steel composite, but with trace elements I can't identify. The atomic structure suggests manufacturing techniques beyond current galactic standards. Korvek's translator unit rendered his chittering speech into crisp standard. Also, the station is much larger than it appears. Our deep scans indicate it extends several kilometers into the moon's shadow. Marcus Webb, their human archaeologist and the youngest member of the crew at 28, looked up from his research terminal. I've been cross-referencing the design with known architectural databases. The closest match is pre-contact human construction, but that's impossible. Humans didn't have interstellar capability until we encountered the Galactic Collective 200 years ago. Zara frowned. Pre-contact human history was a touchy subject in galactic politics. The official narrative was that humanity had been a primitive, planet-bound species until the benevolent Galactic Collective had uplifted them and granted them membership among the stars. It was a story that painted humans as grateful newcomers who owed their civilization to alien guidance. Could be coincidental design similarity, she said diplomatically, though something about the station's angular, aggressive architecture did remind her of the old Earth naval vessels she'd studied in academy. What about life support systems? Atmosphere is holding at about 60% capacity, announced Jixara, their Vorthan pilot, her crystalline features refracting the console lights into rainbow patterns. Breathable for most species, though a bit oxygen-heavy for comfort. No biological signatures detected. Then we go aboard, Zara decided. Korvek, Marcus, and Jixara with me. The rest of you maintain position and keep our exit clear. Standard salvage protocols. 20 minutes later, their shuttle Windfall was gliding through the station's massive docking bay. Emergency lighting strips along the walls cast an eerie blue glow over empty berths that could have housed ships twice the size of their own vessel. The bay doors had opened automatically when they approached, which was both convenient and unsettling. Artificial gravity is functional, Marcus observed as they disembarked, his breath visible in the chilly air. That requires significant power generation. Where's it coming from? They moved through corridors lined with what looked like blast-resistant bulkheads. The architecture was distinctly military, all sharp angles and reinforced surfaces. Emergency signs were posted in multiple languages, but what caught Marcus's attention was that several of them were in ancient Standard English, a language that supposedly hadn't been used in space until after contact. Captain, Korvek called from ahead. You need to see this. He was standing before a massive blast door marked with symbols in a dozen different scripts. At the center was a plaque bearing text in pristine English. United Earth Naval Research Station Prometheus, established 2157. If you can read this, remember us. The implications hit them like a physical blow. 2157 was 57 years before first contact. According to everything they'd been taught, humans hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel until 2220, when collective scientists had shared their technology with Earth. This has to be a mistake, Jixara whispered, her voice carrying an odd harmonic that indicated extreme stress. The historical records are clear. Humans were confined to their home system until contact. Unless the historical records are wrong, Marcus said quietly, running his hands over the English text. Or incomplete. The blast door responded to their presence, iris segments spiraling open with a deep mechanical hum. Beyond lay what was unmistakably a command center, banks of monitors, and control stations arranged around a central holographic display table. Emergency lighting strips pulsed slowly along the walls, and in the center of the room stood something that made Zara's blood run cold. It was a memorial wall lined with photographs and nameplates. Hundreds of them. All human faces, all with names like Rodriguez, O'Brien, Nakamura, Singh, Petrov. Below each photo was rank and service information. Commander Sarah Chun, Earth Naval Intelligence. Chief Engineer David Murphy, Propulsion Research Division. Dr. Elena Volkov, Xenobiology Department. My grandmother's maiden name was Chun, Zara said softly, staring at one particular photograph. The woman in the image could have been her sister. Captain, Korvek's voice was strained. The central computer core is still active. It's been running on minimal power for approximately 327 years. That's impossible. That predates contact by over a century. The computer doesn't seem to care about our historical records. Marcus was already at one of the intact workstations, his fingers flying over controls that, despite their age, seemed intuitive to operate. The interface is responding. It's asking for voice identification. Try it, Zara said, though every instinct told her they were walking into something that could reshape everything they understood about galactic history. Marcus cleared his throat. Marcus Webb, archaeologist, requesting access to station records. The computer's response was immediate and sent chills down their spines. A warm, distinctly human voice filled the command center. Welcome home, Dr. Webb. We've been waiting for you. The central holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional star map of the local galactic arm. Red dots marked dozens of systems, connected by flight paths that formed an intricate network spanning thousands of light years. Blue dots indicated what appeared to be research stations, mining operations, and colonies. All of it dated between 2140 and 2198. What am I looking at? Zara asked, though she was beginning to understand. The true extent of pre-contact human civilization, Marcus replied, his voice barely above a whisper. We weren't primitive. We weren't planet-bound. We had an interstellar empire. The computer continued. Station Prometheus was one of 47 research installations established by the United Earth Colonial Authority between 2157 and 2195. Our mission was to study alien civilizations and develop defensive technologies in preparation for eventual contact with hostile species. Hostile species? Jixara's harmonic stress pattern intensified. Indeed, long-range observations had detected several aggressive expansionist civilizations in the galactic core. Earth Command authorized Project Prometheus to develop countermeasures and establish forward listening posts. We were humanity's early warning system. Zara felt the floor shifting beneath her feet, metaphorically speaking. What happened to these colonies? These stations? Why don't we have any record of them? Please wait. Accessing historical archives. The memorial wall suddenly illuminated with additional lighting, revealing details they hadn't noticed before. Each nameplate included a date of death, and as Zara scanned them, a pattern emerged. Almost all of them showed the same date range, October through December 2214. My God, Marcus breathed. They all died within a 3-month period. What could kill an entire interstellar civilization in 3 months? The collective, the computer, answered matter-of-factly. First contact occurred on October 15th, 2214, when collective forces simultaneously attacked all 47 human installations. Earth received a single transmission from this station before communications were severed permanently. The implications crashed down on them like an avalanche. The Galactic Collective, the benevolent alliance that had supposedly uplifted primitive humanity, had actually destroyed an advanced human civilization and then rewritten history to make themselves the heroes. The official first contact in 2220, Zara said slowly, was with the survivors, the computer confirmed. Earth's population had been reduced to approximately 12 million after the collective bombardment. The survivors were told that their colonies and stations had never existed, that their technological achievements were gifts from their new alien allies. Those who remembered the truth were discouraged from sharing it. Korvac had been silent through most of this revelation, but now his translator crackled to life. "Captain, we need to leave. Now, if this information is accurate, then simply being here could be considered an act of treason against the collective. My people have strict laws about accessing forbidden historical records." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We can't leave. Don't you see? This changes everything. Humanity didn't need uplifting. We were already among the stars. We were magnificent." Zara looked around the command center, at the memorial wall, at the evidence of human achievement that had been systematically erased from history. For 200 years, humans had been made to feel grateful for their place in galactic society, had been told they owed their very existence among the stars to alien beneficence. It was all lies. "Computer," she said carefully, "are there other stations like this one? Other repositories of true human history?" "Unknown. Communications were severed before a complete status report could be compiled. However, this station was designed to be self-sustaining and to preserve all records indefinitely. It is likely that other installations had similar protocols. And the technology, the ships, the weapons, the faster-than-light drives humanity developed independently. Complete technical specifications are stored in the deep archives. However, accessing them would require authorization from Earth Naval Command or, failing that, genetic confirmation from direct descendants of command personnel. Marcus and Zara exchanged glances. The photograph on the memorial wall seemed to stare back at Zara with familiar eyes. "Computer, scan Captain Zara Chun for genetic markers." A soft chime, then genetic scan complete. Captain Chun shows strong familial markers consistent with Commander Sarah Chun, Earth Naval Intelligence, Station Commander from 2189 to 2214. Command authorization confirmed. The room around them came alive. Dormant systems hummed to power, additional displays activated, and a soft voice announced, "Welcome home, Commander Chun." Initiating full archive access. As data cascaded across the displays, showing the true scope of humanity's lost empire, Zara made a decision that would echo through galactic history. They weren't just going to preserve this knowledge. They were going to use it. Humanity had been magnificent once, and by God, they would be magnificent again. "Korvac," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they'd discovered, sent a message to the ship. "We're going to need a lot more storage space. We're taking everything." The old ship in the forgotten hangar had spoken their names, and as the ancient archives uploaded centuries of suppressed human achievement into their databases, Zara knew that everything was about to change. The galaxy had kept humanity in chains for 200 years, had made them grateful for scraps and shadows of their former glory. That was about to end. The memorial wall pulsed with soft light, as if the fallen heroes of humanity's lost empire were awakening after centuries of sleep, ready to remind the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they stopped believing they needed permission to reach for the stars. And in the depths of the station's archives, dormant weapon schematics and starship blueprints waited patiently for hands skilled enough to build them once more. 3 weeks after the discovery at Prometheus Station, the Prosperity's edge drifted in the asteroid belt of the uninhabited Xerian system. Her cargo holds packed with data cores, technological specifications, and historical archives that could reshape galactic civilization. Captain Zara Chun stood in her quarters, staring at a holographic display showing the true extent of pre-contact human space. 47 installations, hundreds of worlds, a civilization that had spanned 200 light years before the collective had systematically erased it from existence. The weight of knowledge was crushing. Every human in the galaxy had been living a lie for over 2 centuries. They'd been made to believe they were grateful recipients of alien charity, when in reality, they were the survivors of genocide. A soft chime announced Marcus Webb's arrival at her door. The young archaeologist looked like he hadn't slept since they'd left Prometheus Station, his eyes bright with the fever of discovery and the burden of truth. "We've finished the preliminary analysis of the technical archives," he said without preamble. "Zara, what we found, it's beyond anything I imagined. The humans of 2200 weren't just interstellar, they were revolutionary. Their technology in some areas exceeded what we have today." "Show me," she said, gesturing to the larger display in her quarters. Marcus uploaded files from his personal datapad, and the room filled with holographic schematics that made Zara's breath catch. Starship designs unlike anything in the current galactic fleet, sleek and aggressive where collective vessels were bulky and utilitarian. Weapon systems based on principles she didn't recognize. Most impressive of all, drive systems that appeared to achieve faster-than-light travel without the exotic matter requirements that limited current technology. "This is a Hunter-class destroyer," Marcus explained, highlighting one particular design. According to the files, it could achieve speeds of up to 15 times light without exotic matter. The Collective's fastest ships today barely manage 12 times light and require massive exotic matter cores. How is that possible? They developed something called quantum tunnel drives. Instead of folding space like current FTL systems, they actually punched temporary holes through dimensional barriers. It was more efficient, faster, and apparently much more stable than anything we use today. Zara studied the schematics, noting design elements that spoke of a culture very different from modern humanity. These weren't ships built for exploration or trade. They were weapons, every line and curve optimized for speed, stealth, and devastating firepower. "These are warships," she observed. "All of them." Earth Command knew they weren't alone in the galaxy. The Prometheus archives contain intelligence reports on 12 different spacefaring civilizations, including early observations of what would later become the Galactic Collective. The humans of 2200 were preparing for war, and they lost. "No," Marcus said firmly. "They were betrayed. Look at this." The display shifted to show communications intercepts and intelligence reports. As Zara read, her anger grew with each revelation. The Collective hadn't simply encountered humanity and decided to conquer them. They'd been monitoring human expansion for decades, studying their technology, learning their weaknesses. When humanity had finally developed sufficient capability to pose a potential threat, the Collective had struck with surgical precision. They destroyed every human installation simultaneously, Marcus continued. But they kept detailed records of human technology. "Look at these dates." The display showed collective technological developments over the past 2 centuries. Quantum tunnel drives had appeared in collective fleets 50 years after contact. Improved targeting systems, enhanced hull alloys, weapon designs that bore suspicious similarity to human innovations. All introduced gradually over decades, as if the Collective were reverse engineering captured technology. They didn't just destroy us, Zara realized. They stole everything we'd built, and then claimed they invented it themselves. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jixara entered, her crystalline features reflecting the holographic displays in prismatic patterns. The Vorthan pilot looked troubled, her harmonic speech patterns carrying an undertone Zara had learned to recognize as deep emotional distress. "Captain, we have a problem. I've been monitoring collective communication channels, and there's increasing chatter about unauthorized access to restricted historical databases. They know someone has been accessing forbidden archives." Zara felt ice form in her stomach. How much do they know? Unknown, but 3 separate collective enforcement fleets have been dispatched to sectors containing known pre-contact human installations. They're conducting archaeological surveys of all potentially significant sites. They're cleaning up, Marcus said grimly, destroying any remaining evidence. Which means we may be the only ones with access to the complete truth, Zara concluded. And we're being hunted. She stood silent for a moment, processing the implications. They could run, hide in the outer rim territories, and hope the collective never found them. They could destroy the archives to avoid the consequences of possessing them. Or they could do something that would be considered treason by every government in the galaxy. Marcus, she said finally, how difficult would it be to build one of these ships? The archaeologist blinked in surprise. Build one? Zara, we're talking about technology that's centuries ahead of most current shipyard capabilities. The exotic materials alone. The Prometheus archives don't just contain ship designs, she interrupted. They contain manufacturing specifications, material composition formulas, complete technical documentation. Everything needed to rebuild human technology from the ground up. Even if we could find a shipyard willing to work with us, which is doubtful given the political implications, we're talking about massive resource requirements. The exotic materials, the manufacturing equipment, the skilled personnel. What about the outer rim? Jixara interjected, her harmonic patterns shifting to indicate deep thought. There are independent shipyards out there, operators who don't ask questions if you pay well. The Torvin Syndicate, for instance. They have facilities that could handle exotic construction projects. Zara nodded slowly. The Torvin were notorious for their willingness to work outside official channels, building ships for pirates, smugglers, and anyone else with sufficient credits and a need for secrecy. If anyone could be convinced to undertake an impossible construction project, it would be them. There's another issue, Marcus said. Even if we build a ship using pre-contact human technology, what then? One vessel against the entire collective fleet? We start with one, Zara replied. But we don't stay with one. The archives contain detailed information about human colony locations, research facilities, manufacturing centers. Most of them were destroyed, but the ruins are still there. And if Prometheus Station survived with its archives intact, you think there might be others, Jixara realized. I think humanity was too smart to put all their knowledge in one place. If we can find even 2 or 3 more installations with intact archives, we'd have everything needed to begin rebuilding human technological capability. That's assuming we can convince other humans to join us, Marcus pointed out. Most people have been raised believing the collective saved humanity. They're not going to readily accept that their entire understanding of history is wrong. Then, we'll have to show them, Zara said firmly. Demonstrate what humanity was capable of before the collective rewrote our history. Build ships that outperform anything in the current galactic fleet. Prove that humans don't need alien permission to be magnificent. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the ship's communication system. Korvek's voice echoed through the room. Captain to the bridge, immediately. We have incoming vessels. They rushed to the command deck, where the main display showed 3 collective enforcement cruisers dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Massive, intimidating vessels bristling with weapons and sensor arrays, they represented the iron fist behind the collective's velvet-glove diplomacy. How did they find us? Marcus asked. Unknown, Korvek replied, his 4 arms working frantically over his control panels. They must have tracked our hyperspace signature from Prometheus Station. Incoming transmission, announced their communications officer, a Dracian named Siltok, whose lizard-like features showed clear signs of fear. They're demanding we heave for inspection. Zara felt time slowing down around her as she considered their options. They could surrender, allow the collective to confiscate the archives, and probably execute the entire crew for accessing forbidden historical records. They could try to run, though the enforcement cruisers were faster and better armed than their salvage vessel. Or she could do something that had never been done in the 200 years since contact. She could fight back with human technology. Marcus, she said quietly, how long would it take you to adapt the quantum tunnel drive specifications for our current engine systems? What? Zara, that's impossible. The theoretical principles alone. How long? Even if it were possible, which I doubt, you need completely different power distribution systems, modified control interfaces, restructured containment fields, hours at minimum, probably days. We don't have days, she pointed out, watching the enforcement cruisers advance through the asteroid field. Captain, Jixara said from the pilot station. "I've been studying the drive schematics since we left Prometheus. The basic principles aren't that different from our current hyperspace engines. If we're willing to accept significant risk." "What kind of risk?" "The quantum tunnel drive creates temporary dimensional rifts. If the calculations are wrong, we could tear the ship apart or strand ourselves in dimensional space permanently." Zara looked around the bridge at her crew. Humans, Thaxians, Vorthans, Drexians, all species that had supposedly been uplifted and civilized by the benevolent collective. All of them now sitting on evidence that their entire understanding of galactic history was a lie. "Do it," she decided. "Jixara, work with Marcus to adapt the drive specifications. Korvek, reroute all available power to the engine systems. Siltok, send a response to the collective ships. Tell them we're experiencing technical difficulties and need time to comply." "Zara," Marcus said urgently, "this is insanity. We're talking about using theoretical technology that hasn't been tested in over 300 years. The humans who built this technology were our ancestors," she replied. "They were fighting for their survival against overwhelming odds, just like we are now. If they can make it work, so can we." Over the next hour, her crew performed what could only be described as technological archaeology. Using the Prometheus archives as guides, they jury-rigged modifications to their ship's engine systems that would have been considered impossible by any engineering textbook. Quantum field generators were repurposed as dimensional anchors. Hyperspace navigation computers were reprogrammed with equations that described reality in ways that defied conventional physics. "The collective ships are hailing us again," Siltok reported. "They're demanding immediate compliance, or they'll open fire." "Jixara, what's our status?" "Theoretical modifications complete," the Vorthan pilot replied, though her harmonic patterns indicated extreme uncertainty. "I've never seen anything like these equations. They describe space-time as fundamentally malleable rather than fixed." "Will it work?" "According to the computer simulations, possibly. But there's a 30% chance we'll create a dimensional cascade that destroys everything within a 10-kilometer radius." Zara thought about the memorial wall at Prometheus Station, the hundreds of faces representing humanity's lost glory. She thought about 2 centuries of her species living as grateful supplicants to the very civilization that had destroyed their empire. She thought about what humanity could become if they remembered what they once were. "Engage the drive," she ordered. The Prosperity's edge disappeared from normal space-time in a flash of impossible light that temporarily blinded the collective sensors. When the enforcement cruiser's targeting systems cleared, they found nothing but empty space and confused asteroids knocked from their orbits by dimensional aftershocks. 30 light-years away, near the edge of the galactic rim, where old human colonies had once thrived, a small salvage ship emerged from a dimensional rift that had no business existing according to current physics. Her crew looked around in amazement, having just proven that humanity's ancestors had indeed been giants among the stars. "Set course for the Torvin shipyards," Zara ordered. "It's time to start rebuilding what was stolen from us." Behind them, the dimensional wake of their passage would puzzle collective scientists for months. Ahead of them lay the monumental task of convincing a conquered species to remember they had once been conquerors. But for the first time in 3 centuries, a human ship had outmaneuvered the collective using technology their own ancestors had developed. The war for humanity's true heritage had begun. The Torvin shipyards hung in the perpetual twilight of the Nexus system, a collection of massive industrial platforms orbiting a dying red dwarf star. Here, in the lawless reaches of the galactic rim, ships were built for those who couldn't or wouldn't use legitimate shipyards. Pirates, smugglers, revolutionaries, and worse came to the Torvin with exotic materials and questionable blueprints seeking vessels that could outrun collective enforcement fleets. Zara Chun stood on the observation deck of Platform 7, watching robotic constructors assemble what appeared to be impossible architecture. 6 months had passed since their escape from Prometheus Station. 6 months of careful negotiations, resource gathering, and the delicate process of convincing the Torvin Syndicate to undertake the most ambitious construction project in galactic history. The ship taking shape in the construction bay below defied every principle of current starship design. Where modern vessels were bulky and utilitarian, this craft was a predator made manifest. 150 meters of aggressive angles and flowing curves, her hull composed of exotic alloys that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. She looked like something that could tear through space-time itself, which, according to the ancient blueprints they were following, was exactly what she was designed to do. The quantum tunnel drive assembly is nearly complete, reported Chief Constructor Vex, a cybernetically enhanced Torvin whose natural chitinous form had been modified with mechanical appendages that allowed him to work directly with exotic matter. Your specifications are unique. We've never built anything that manipulates dimensional barriers quite like this. Has there been any word from the test facilities? Zara asked. The prototype weapons systems exceeded all performance parameters. Your ancestors designed remarkably efficient methods of converting matter to energy. Vex paused, his mechanical appendages clicking nervously. Captain Shun, I must ask again. Are you certain about the political implications of this project? Building a vessel with this level of capability could be considered an act of war against the Collective. Zara smiled grimly. The Collective declared war on humanity 300 years ago. We're just finally preparing to fight back. Over the past months, word of their discovery had spread carefully through networks of humans working in the Outer Rim territories. Ship captains, miners, traders, scientists, all people who had chosen the freedom of the frontier over the security of collective space. Most had initially reacted with disbelief to the evidence from Prometheus Station. The idea that humanity had once possessed an interstellar empire seemed like fantasy. But as more humans saw the archives, studied the technology, and understood the implications of what had been stolen from their species, a transformation had begun. Quietly, carefully, humans throughout the Rim territories had begun to organize. They called themselves the Remembrance, after the memorial wall at Prometheus Station. Their goal was simple: restore humanity's rightful place among the stars. Captain, Marcus Webb's voice carried over the construction bay's communication system. We've received a response from the expedition to the Sigma Draconis system. Zara hurried to the command center that had been established on Platform 7. Marcus stood before a holographic display showing a star map marked with red and blue indicators. His expression was a mixture of triumph and barely controlled excitement. They found it, he said without preamble. Research Station Perseus, exactly where the archives said it would be. Mostly intact, complete with its own data cores, and what appears to be a functional manufacturing facility. Manufacturing facility? According to the preliminary reports, Perseus was designed to be self-sustaining. They've got everything needed to produce exotic materials, construct drive components, even fabricate weapon systems. If the facility could be brought back online, we could build an entire fleet. Zara studied the display, noting the locations of confirmed human installations scattered across dozens of systems. Each successful discovery brought new evidence of humanity's lost empire and new resources for their reconstruction efforts. More importantly, each discovery brought new converts to their cause. Any sign of collective activity in the area? None so far, but that's probably because Perseus is in what they consider dead space. No strategic value, no resources worth exploiting. They probably assume anything there was destroyed centuries ago. The irony wasn't lost on Zara. The Collective's systematic erasure of human civilization had been so thorough that they'd stopped looking for installations in worthless systems. It was their arrogance that was allowing humanity to slowly rebuild. A new voice interrupted their conversation. Captain Shun, you need to see this. Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of the human scientists who had joined their cause after reviewing the Prometheus archives, approached with a data pad clutched in her hands. The elderly physicist had spent 40 years working within the Collective's research establishment before learning that much of the technology she'd helped develop had originally been created by her own species. We've completed our analysis of the quantum tunnel drive equations, she said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Zara, this technology isn't just more advanced than current FTL systems. It's revolutionary. The implications go far beyond simple transportation. Explain. Current hyperspace travel works by folding space-time, creating shortcuts between distant points. But quantum tunnel drives actually create temporary rifts in the dimensional barriers between parallel realities. In effect, they allow limited access to the multiverse itself. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. What does that mean, practically speaking? It means your ancestors didn't just develop faster than light travel. They developed technology that could access infinite parallel dimensions. The potential applications are... Dr. Vasquez paused, struggling to find words. Resource extraction from uninhabited parallel Earths. Communication across impossible distances through dimensional anchoring. Even theoretical time manipulation by accessing dimensions where temporal flow occurs differently. Are you saying humans develop time travel? Not time travel exactly, but temporal viewing, certainly. The ability to observe past events by accessing dimensions where those events are still occurring. And possibly limited temporal communication. Marcus looked up sharply from his displays. That would explain some of the inconsistencies in the archives. References to events that happened after the stations were supposedly destroyed, technological developments that seemed to postdate first contact. The humans fighting the collective weren't just using advanced technology, Dr. Vasquez continued. They were getting intelligence from parallel timelines, observing multiple possible futures, choosing their strategies based on knowledge of how different approaches would play out. Then, how do they lose? Zara asked. Because the collective developed countermeasures. Look at this. The display shifted to show technical specifications from deeper in the Prometheus archives. Dimensional dampening fields, quantum interference generators, technologies designed specifically to neutralize multidimensional access. The collective didn't just defeat humanity through superior firepower, Marcus realized. They cut off our access to the multiverse, made it impossible for human forces to coordinate across dimensions or gather intelligence from parallel timelines. Which means, Dr. Vasquez said grimly, they knew about our capabilities long before they attacked. This was a carefully planned campaign to neutralize a specific type of threat. The implications were staggering. The collective hadn't just conquered a primitive species and rewritten history. They had fought and defeated a civilization that had access to the fundamental building blocks of reality itself. Humanity hadn't been uplifted. They'd been cut down from heights that current galactic civilization couldn't even imagine. How many people know about this? Zara asked. Just the three of us and Dr. Corvin, who helped with the analysis, Dr. Vasquez replied. This information is dangerous. If word spreads that we're attempting to rebuild multidimensional access technology, the collective would mobilize their entire fleet to stop us, Marcus finished. This isn't just about restoring human civilization. We're talking about powers that could reshape the entire galactic order. Zara stood silent for a moment, processing the weight of what they discovered. She thought they were simply trying to restore humanity's rightful place among the stars. Now she understood they were inheritors of technology that could make humanity the dominant force in the galaxy. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The main display activated to show the face of Captain Sarah Morrison, one of the human ship commanders who had joined the Remembrance. Her expression was grim. Zara, we have a problem. Collective enforcement fleets have begun systematic sweeps of the Outer Rim territories. They're not just looking for archaeological sites anymore. They're boarding human ships, conducting loyalty assessments, and confiscating any technology they can't immediately identify. How bad is it? Bad. They've taken 6 ships in the last week. Anyone found with pre-contact historical files or unusual technology has been arrested for seditious archaeology. Word is they're being transferred to interrogation facilities in the core systems. Zara felt her jaw clench. The collective was moving from passive suppression to active persecution. The time for careful preparation was running out. "What's the status of our fleet construction?" she asked. "The lead ship will be ready for trials within the week," Constructor Vex reported from his position near the fabrication controls. "We've managed to build 3 more using simplified versions of the specifications, though they lack the full, multidimensional capabilities of the prototype. And crew training? Ongoing. Your people are learning to operate systems that are centuries ahead of anything they've used before. The quantum tunnel drives alone require a completely different approach to navigation." Sarah Morrison's image shifted as she consulted her own displays. "Zara, there's something else. We've been monitoring collective military communications. They're planning something they're calling final cleansing. Mass arrests, systematic destruction of human settlements in the Rim territories, complete information lockdown on all pre-contact historical data. When? 2 months, maybe less. They want to make sure no trace of true human history survives this time." Zara looked down at the construction bay, where her ship waited, almost complete, but not yet ready. Around the shipyard, thousands of humans worked with desperate purpose, racing to rebuild their civilization before it could be destroyed again. The memorial wall at Prometheus Station had shown them the faces of their ancestors who had died fighting for humanity's freedom. Now it was their turn. Send word to all remembrance cells, she decided. Begin Phase 2 operations immediately. It's time to remind the galaxy what humans are capable of when they stop asking permission to exist. Phase 2, Dr. Vasquez asked. "We stop hiding," Zara replied, watching the final hull plates being installed on humanity's first new warship in 3 centuries. "We spent 6 months learning what our ancestors built. Now we're going to finish what they started." The ship in the construction bay gleamed under the industrial lighting, her quantum tunnel drives ready to tear holes in reality itself. Soon she would carry her human crew back to the stars their species had once called home, armed with weapons that could reshape the galactic order and driven by the memories of an empire that had been stolen from them. The collective had made one crucial error in their systematic erasure of human achievement. They had allowed survivors to live, and eventually those survivors would remember. The old ship in the forgotten hangar had spoken their names, and now those names would be written across the stars in fire and fury. Humanity was coming home. The bridge of the Defiance hummed with energy that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the conventional 3. Captain Zara Chun stood at the center of her command deck, watching displays that showed tactical information no collective officer would understand. Quantum probability cascades, multidimensional approach vectors, temporal displacement options that allowed her ship to exist partially outside normal space-time. After 8 months of intensive training, her crew had learned to operate technology that made the rest of the galactic fleet seem primitive. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb from the science station, "we're approaching the Kepler 186 system. Collective enforcement fleet detected, bearing 27 Mark IV. 12 vessels, including 2 dreadnoughts. They're guarding the ruins of New Geneva," observed Commander Sarah Morrison from the tactical station. According to the Prometheus archives, New Geneva had been one of humanity's most important colony worlds, a thriving center of research and industry that had housed over 50 million people before the collective bombardment. "Any response to our presence?" Zara asked. "They're hailing us on standard frequencies," the communications officer reported, demanding identification and ordering us to heave to for inspection. Zara smiled grimly. The collective had been hunting her ship for 2 months, ever since the Defiance had begun appearing at the sites of destroyed human colonies. They couldn't track her movements because quantum tunnel drives left no hyperspace signature, couldn't predict her destinations because she accessed navigational data from parallel timelines, and couldn't match her speed because she traveled through dimensional space rather than normal space-time. "Open a channel to the collective fleet," she ordered. "All frequencies." When the connection established, Zara faced the image of Admiral Kethfor, a Zalani officer whose reputation for ruthless efficiency had made him a legend in collective military circles. His scaled features showed the controlled aggression of a predator accustomed to commanding through fear. "Unknown vessel, you are trespassing in restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or face the consequences. I am Captain Zara Chun of the Earth vessel Defiance. We are here to reclaim what was stolen from humanity. Admiral Keth Vor's expression shifted from irritation to recognition. Captain Chun, the Collective Council has placed a substantial bounty on your capture. Your terrorist activities have caused considerable disruption. Terrorist activities? Zara laughed. Admiral, we've been visiting the graves of our ancestors. Sites where the Collective murdered billions of humans and then erased all evidence of their existence. If seeking justice for genocide makes me a terrorist, I wear the title proudly. The historical records are clear. Humanity was a primitive species until the Collective provided technological advancement and galactic citizenship. Your claims of a pre-contact human empire are fabrications designed to undermine galactic stability. Then, you won't mind if we conduct archaeological surveys of New Geneva's ruins. If there's nothing to find, you have nothing to fear. Admiral Keth Vor's image flickered as he consulted with his staff. Captain Chun, I am authorized to offer you a final opportunity for surrender. Submit to collective authority, and your crew will be treated as misguided rather than criminal. Admiral, Zara replied, let me show you something. She gestured to Marcus, who activated a holographic display visible to both ships. The projection showed the memorial wall from Prometheus Station, hundreds of faces of the humans who had died defending their civilization. Then it shifted to show technical specifications, star maps, colony records, everything they'd recovered from the archives. These are the people your predecessors murdered, she said quietly. These are the worlds they destroyed. This is the empire they erased. Every human in the galaxy is a descendant of genocide survivors who were told to be grateful for their slavery. Propaganda and fabricated evidence, Keth Vor declared, though his voice carried less certainty than before. The Collective has brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy for over 2 centuries. Peace built on lies and prosperity stolen from the dead. Zara's voice hardened. Admiral, I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw from this system. Leave now, and no harm will come to your fleet. 1 ship against 12. Keth Vor's expression showed amused contempt. Captain Chun, your vessel is impressive for a primitive human construction, but you are grossly outgunned. Am I? Zara nodded to her weapons officer, a former Collective naval engineer named David Park who had joined a remembrance after learning his own research had been based on stolen human technology. Mr. Park, demonstrate our capabilities. Target the asteroid field. Coordinates 77 Alpha. Quantum lance charging, Captain. Multidimensional targeting lock acquired. The Defiance fired a weapon that had no equivalent in modern galactic arsenals. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, quantum lances created tiers in dimensional space, allowing the ship to channel destruction from parallel realities where different physical laws applied. The asteroid targeted for demonstration simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from several dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Keth Vor's expression shifted from contempt to alarm. What kind of weapon was that? Something your people stole from mine 300 years ago, Zara replied. The originals were even more impressive. Now, Admiral, I've demonstrated that we can destroy your fleet without difficulty. Will you withdraw peacefully? All ships, attack formation Beta, Keth Vor commanded. Target the human vessel. Fire at will. The Collective fleet opened fire with everything they had. Particle beams, plasma torpedoes, quantum disruptors, enough firepower to vaporize a city. But the Defiance wasn't where their weapon struck. Using quantum tunnel drives in combat mode, the ship existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensional rifts, making conventional targeting impossible. Return fire, Zara ordered. Disable their drives, don't destroy them. We want survivors to carry word back to the Collective Council. What followed wasn't a battle so much as a demonstration. The Defiance moved through combat space like a predator among prey, her quantum lances precisely targeting enemy drive systems while her dimensional shields made enemy fire irrelevant. Within 15 minutes, the entire Collective fleet was drifting powerless, their crews alive but their ships crippled. This is impossible, Admiral Kethvor said over the open channel. No single vessel can defeat an entire fleet. This single vessel was built using technology your people tried to destroy, Zara replied. We've recovered the archives, Admiral. We know what humanity was before the collective crushed us. And we're going to make sure the galaxy remembers. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. Marcus, begin deep scans of New Geneva's surface. I want every trace of human civilization documented and transmitted to our archive networks. Sarah, launch reconnaissance probes to the other colony sites in this system. It's time the galaxy saw what the collective destroyed. Over the next several hours, the Defiant conducted the most comprehensive archaeological survey in galactic history. Her advanced sensors penetrated through centuries of accumulated debris to reveal the ruins of a civilization that had spanned continents. Cities that had housed millions, research facilities that had pushed the boundaries of science, spaceports that had launched ships to 100 different worlds. Captain, Marcus reported, his voice tight with emotion, we're reading massive structural remains consistent with a planetary capital. Population centers, industrial complexes, educational facilities. This wasn't a primitive world. This was a jewel of human civilization. And they destroyed it all, Sarah said grimly. 50 million people, plus who knows how many more in the orbital facilities. Upload everything to the Quantum Beacon network, Zara ordered. Make sure every human settlement in the galaxy receives these records. It's time our people understood what was taken from them. As the survey continued, long-range sensors detected something unexpected. Ships were approaching from multiple vectors, but these weren't collective vessels. The sensor profiles matched modified human designs, ships that had been retrofitted with technology based on the Prometheus archives. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from the approaching vessels, the communications officer reported. Recognition codes match remembrance protocols. The main display activated to show faces Zara recognized. Captain Elena Rodriguez of the converted freighter New Horizon. Commander Michael O'Brien of the patrol ship Liberty. Captain Yuki Tanaka of the research vessel Discovery. Dozens of human ship commanders who had spent months preparing for this moment. Zara, Elena Rodriguez said, her image overlaid with the symbols of the remembrance. We received your transmission about the final cleansing operations. Every human ship in the Outer Rim territories has responded. We're ready. The tactical display updated to show the scope of what they'd accomplished. Over 40 human vessels, each crewed by people who had learned the truth about their heritage and chosen to reclaim it. Modified with weapons and drives based on recovered human technology, they represented the first independent human fleet to operate in galactic space since before the collective's betrayal. Fleet status report, Zara requested. All vessels operational and standing by, Sarah Morrison reported from her expanded fleet coordination console. Quantum tunnel drives tested and verified. Crews trained on dimensional warfare protocols. We're as ready as we can be. Then it's time, Zara decided. Signal the fleet. Set course for the Vega system. If the collective wants to begin their final cleansing, they're going to discover that humanity remembers how to fight. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Kethvor managed to restore communications to his flagship. His image appeared on the Defiance's main screen, showing a Zalani officer whose certainty had been shattered by the day's revelations. Captain Chun, he said slowly, even if what you claim is true, the collective controls hundreds of worlds and commands millions of ships. A few dozen human vessels cannot hope to change the galactic order. Admiral, Zara replied, studying the tactical displays showing her fleet formation. You're thinking like a conventional military commander. But we're not fighting a conventional war. We have access to technology that can manipulate space and time itself. We can strike from parallel dimensions, coordinate across multiple timelines, and draw resources from realities where humanity was never conquered. That's impossible. 300 years ago, your predecessors thought the same thing. They managed to cut off our multidimensional access once before, but this time we know they're coming. She gestured to the Quantum Beacon network displays, showing data transmission to human settlements across hundreds of light years. Every human in the galaxy now knows the truth about their heritage. Every human ship captain has access to the technical specifications we recovered. Every human scientist understands that the technology they work with was originally developed by their own ancestors. The collective will crush any rebellion before it can gain momentum. The collective will try, Zara agreed. But they're about to discover something they've managed to forget over the past 3 centuries. Humanity doesn't just survive. When we're pushed to the edge of extinction, when we're told we don't deserve to exist, when we're forced to fight against impossible odds. She smiled with the confidence of someone who carried the memories of an empire in her blood. We become magnificent. The human fleet activated their quantum tunnel drives simultaneously, creating dimensional rifts that tore holes in normal space-time. As the ships disappeared into the multidimensional void, Admiral Kethvor was left staring at empty space and contemplating a future where the galaxy's most carefully guarded secret had become its most dangerous truth. Humanity remembered what they had been. Now they would reclaim what was rightfully theirs, one star system at a time. The old ship in the forgotten hangar had spoken their names, and those names would echo through the galaxy until justice was restored and the dead were finally avenged. The real war was about to begin.